Welcome to Making Your Miles Count Production, an educational program to all Canadian lease owner-operators with your host, Robert Scaper.
Welcome to a podcast on wisdom, and it's a very unusual approach to financial freedom. Most podcasts, when they talk about financial freedom, it says get wealthy, do this hack, do that hack, or whatever. And my position on gaining wealth and financial freedom is you actually don't focus your mind and heart on money, but you focus it first on wisdom, gaining of wisdom and understanding. And if that's where your focus is, wealth is going to automatically come to you. It's truly the horse before the cart is wisdom. You will find a lot of very wealthy people who are not wise, but they're on their way down with their money, not on their way up with money. You will not find a wise person who is going down in their finances nearly like they are always gaining wealth. Wealth comes from wisdom. It doesn't come from the embracing of money only as a concept. So that's what I want to focus on here. Today we're going to talk about counselors, seeking wise counseling. And there's a huge variety of different types of counsels that we can get. There's obviously there's bad counsel and good counsel. And in business, as well as in personal, finding good, wise advice is your number one goal. Like I said, lay aside the idea of gaining money, and number one, you want to find wise counsel. There is obviously a lot of different types of counselors. There's good counselors, advisors. There is indifferent or almost useless advisors. And then there is bad advice or foolish counsel. If you want to find some foolish ones, probably go on TikTok. That'll give you some bad advice. They're notorious for hacking and short-term minded, oriented individuals who are trying to get you wealthy for the least amount of sacrifice.
Shortcut to wealth doesn't work.
Yeah, there is no such thing as shortcut. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what or who are counselors. What different types of people are there? First of all, there's counselors in our families. Every family has, well, I shouldn't say every family, but most families have at least one or so or more wise or wiser individuals. People that you trust and they have your best interest at heart. There are some families, unfortunately, have almost no wise people in them at all. There's very, very few that are all wise, and there's almost always at least somebody who's a little bit off. And if you can't find the unwise person, maybe that's you. But realistically, families is the first place we learn where to gain wisdom and where not to gain wisdom. I know from our family, our history, most of our relatives were all independent business owners. Mm-hmm. I was thinking about this afternoon, is there anybody in our family who had a 9-to-5 job working for somebody? I don't think so. So everybody had their area of expertise. We had everything, farmers, independent business people. Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, everybody was independent business people. So when we went to family gatherings, everybody was talking, okay, you got to do it yourself. Just keep the customers happy. You have to. The focus was completely different than actually my wife. I don't think my wife's family had anybody who was in business. Well, extended maybe. They were just doing 9 to 5 for somebody else.
One of them was for a bit, right?
A little, yeah. If a person gets a lot of money really fast and then loses it, it's generally probably not because they were wise to get into it. Maybe he's learned from that. But realistically, real wise people, you have to look at your family first. Who's the wisest in there too? I was talking to Masoom, my office manager in Winnipeg, and I asked him, how do they do it? He comes from a Hindu family. And I said, what do you do it? And he says, you find, an uncle or a relative of some sort who is successful enough that they don't feel jealous by sharing their wisdom, and they really care for your own success. They're okay. They want you to succeed. I thought, man, that's good advice. That's right there. That's it's in the family setting. You find the one that really wants other people to succeed. We've had Uncle Abe. He's passed away now, but fabulous advice, and just you know that he's got your best interest at heart. Hey, why don't you do it this way? How do you want do it that way? Family is a great resource. Do you have anybody in the family that you always went to? No?
Nobody.
Well,
Sorry.
so you are then the person that everybody else comes to.
Yeah, a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a lot.
Yeah. So I've never gone to family for. There was too much jealousy in our family. Like they would rather tear you down than to build you up. So I have a brother that's quite successful, but we never talk business because it's always if you do better than I am, then they
Too
find
much
some way to
competition.
So I always went outside. I've had a couple of uncles, like more on my wife's side. I had one uncle that I really admired, looked up to for counsel. Other than that, my family, no, there was 14 kids in our family.
Wow.
And
14 kids?
kids, yeah, plus mom and dad.
Ooh.
And,
Okay, big one.
A lot of them are successful. It's something that we don't talk about.
Oh yeah.
Must be a very competitive family.
No, very jealous family.
Ooh.
Oh.
Jealousy will destroy.
Envy is one of the worst things.
Yep.
If you
The
want to be
biggest killer.
successful in business, you gotta get rid of envy. That's the first thing you gotta get out of there. Otherwise, you ain't going anywhere.
I have always, when I see a person that is working to succeed, I've always tried to get in behind them, help them, encourage them. It doesn't matter who it is. Like,
Yeah.
we talked about it on Sunday on the way back from Winnipeg. I said, you know what? And my wife was talking about somebody that was just started a business a little while ago, and they were doing quite well. And I said, wow.
Yeah.
Like, that is just awesome.
Yeah.
And even our kids, like, I've always tried to lift our kids to that they do better than me.
Yeah.
Most of the time, the parents try to pull the kids down because they don't want them to be higher than you. But for me, it's always if the kids should do 2 and 3 times better than what I did,
You should. Absolutely.
and it doesn't make me look bad.
No.
Yeah. So there are some families that have good resources for counselors,
Correct.
and some that just don't. And if they don't, well then you're the one.
But you know what? It's like
can't
that
be.
with anything. Jealousy and envy is the biggest killer,
Oh, yeah.
even among friends.
Yeah.
That is one thing that you have to keep out of your life.
Yeah. Who or what are counselors? Family is the first, and the second one is friends. How we choose our friends makes a huge difference where we're going to be in 10 years from now.
Yeah.
If we circle around some, they're really fun people to be around, but they're fools and they're going around and they're, and they can waste our time and energy and sometimes resources and drag us into places that, oh boy, I was at the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yep.
Now I got, 3 months to get myself out of this hole, Choosing friends is just so critical. I know when I got my master's, I was out on the road for a long time, my wife and I, and got my master's, and I came back to our hometown city here, and everybody had all, they got their little friend groups and stuff like this. So I sat down and I said, okay, well, very few know me anymore, so I went down and I looked around and I said, okay, that guy's pretty good, that guy's pretty good. And I made a list of 6 or 7 individuals, and I said, okay, of these 6 or 7, who would I think is a valuable friend, good character, good resources and stuff like this. And I chose, Alan was at the top of the list. Well, Alan, he was married at the time, and he was working at a building center, totally different than what I was doing or whatever. But I called him up. He's a nice enough guy. He says he wouldn't tell me no to go out for coffee. So I called him up. We went out for coffee, talked for a little bit, had a good time. And I'd do it over and over again. For 6 months, I called him. He never once called me. And after 6 months, that was the first time that he said, hey, now it's time to go for coffee. So it's sort of like I had to prove myself that I was committed to this relationship. But that's what a lot of people, really they need. They need to purposefully pick and choose their friends. And if they look at them and they say, you know what, this is not a good friendship. Don't make a pronouncement and just take off. You just slowly back away and fade back into the bushes and hopefully.
And sometimes you gotta just break the friendship.
Yeah. Sometimes.
Yeah.
For sure.
I know. In the past 3 years, our friendship circle has changed dramatically.
Mm-hmm.
Some have walked away. We walked away from some because it just didn't edify anymore.
Yeah.
There was nothing.
So you're not creating a value of any sort.
So we have friends that are multi-millionaires, and we have friends that have very little money.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of
Yeah.
float in between. But we have one couple that we don't get together with more than maybe 3-4 times a year. But it's such wisdom when we get together. Like they're in business, we're in business.
Sure.
And it's so rich. And you know what? We never miss a beat. And there's never animosity between us.
Yeah.
It's just we don't get together.
Sure.
Yeah.
But when we do, it's very rich.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are very, very valuable friendships.
Yeah, we have two couples that we actually have like that.
In life, probably one of the most hilarious situations, there's a huge assumption in high school that the friends that we develop in high school are going to be there for the rest of our lives, kind of a thing. Within 5 years, you maybe have 10% of the same guy. If that.
Yeah.
It's almost always, it's a completely different group. And that's just life. It just moves from this to that. And you don't even have to, move to another city or something like that to lose friends. Like, yes, you graduate, but then how many get married? But all the married ones, the married ones get together with other married ones, and then once they start having kids, well, then they split up even further to the ones that have kids.
Yeah.
Your friends groups change.
Yeah.
But instead of just flowing with the river and saying, well, okay, this is our new friend group or where, you have to be purposefully and say, okay, but I'm going to think through who our friend group is, and no, I don't want that one.
Yeah.
And you know what? I want to include this one. What do I have to do to make it a little bit more? And it's not like a selfish thing. Like, you don't want to. I want to see if I can get a better job from this guy or something like that. It's really you're looking for wise counsel, and that's so critical. There's a research, and I can't remember the exact figures, but if you take your 5 closest friends, from a financial perspective, you are going to end up with the average of those 5 friends. However much each one of them makes or whatever they're worth or whatever, your personal worth will always be with the average within that realm. If you want to gain financial wealth, realistically, you have to say, okay, I want a different friend group to take me to a next level financially. You have to have a different approach.
My pastor always said, if you want to soar with eagles, don't fly with turkeys.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of exit ramps. There's all of a sudden you want to just go to a different direction, and sometimes it comes automatically.
Yeah.
Growth. I like the one saying is, I read on a billboard in Wisconsin. It said, change is inevitable, but growth is optional. You can't grow. If you want to grow, you got to grow on purpose.
Yeah.
And there's times where you have to say goodbye to somebody because they're not a benefit to you.
Yeah.
And it's not that you walk away now that you never talk to each other. It's just you're going a different direction.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. We have friends that we've been friends with them for the last 35 years.
Yeah.
They are the same today as they were. I mean, we only get together with them a couple of times a year.
Sure.
Yeah.
Like, really?
Yeah.
Value is value. There's a great book by Dr. Cloud, Necessary Endings. It goes through the whole process of saying, okay, look, this is toxic, or that would be the extreme case, but it's an unnecessary relationship.
Yep.
This is something that's not benefiting or whatever, and you have a necessary ending to different things in your life. And sometimes friendships are like that. You just have to say goodbye. And boy, some of the arguments that you get from people. I had a guy who approached me and wanted to be my friend, but he was a hothead, just like he would pop off. And I didn't reply immediately to the text. because I'm going, oh man,
Yeah.
like this, and I was trying to be nice and stuff like this, and sure enough, probably about it's only a day and a half later, and he texted me one of the most vile, just blasted me, and I'm going, okay, all right, don't have to worry about him anymore,
Yeah.
But I hated to do that, but
Yeah.
realistically, this guy's a hothead, and it was just a matter of time before he'd drag me into something,
Yeah.
and I would be fighting his battle.
But you got to watch out for suckers too, because some people will just suck the life out of you,
Oh, yeah.
and they don't want to change anything,
Yeah.
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 and then you feel so discouraged.
And used.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, and why did we get together with
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. The next category is educators, and there's a number of them actually. Real educator, there's classical educators like teachers and professors is a good one. They're classical. They're actually trained in some area. When it comes to, say, a mechanic for your truck, they're trained either classically through the educational system or through a great deal of experience. Very important to have, if you're an independent operator, you have got to have Wise Counsel in mechanics. Just unbelievably important. To delegate that to a random person, and I had one client, oh my goodness sakes, he was a little bit behind on something, and he walked into the a dealership, and he says, all right, my truck is going down, and I don't care what it costs, you got to get it up going within 3 hours. That's like, meat to a lion who hasn't eaten in a while.
Yeah.
You're gone. And
Blank check.
then he gets a huge bill at the end, and he starts complaining. Well, what are you complaining for?
Yeah.
He set the relationship up, and you're not there to learn anything. You're not there to say, okay, well, what exactly did the air compressor, why did it go, how did it, what's the difference, what's the life expectancy? You didn't learn anything of that. It is, no, you want wisdom, you want to portray yourself as wise to start off with, even if you don't know what you're doing at all. In our business, we have 3 programmers. Like these guys write in, all the different programming languages. These guys in a tech meeting, I'm sitting there, and I'm the president of the company. You got guys, and they're talking in hieroglyphics. I have no idea what they're talking about. Totally ignorant. But I still learn by body language and stuff, and tone of voice and that guy really submitted it to that guy and because of this, and you learn. Even if you have no idea what they're actually talking about, you got to learn, and you have to understand. And you say, okay, now I know how to deal with this guy. You learn peripherally. You present yourself, not like I know how to do programming, but you know how to lead people, and realistically. Anyway, that's maybe a little rabbit trail. But classic teachers, professors, do you have any teachers that really influenced your life?
I had one, grade 7, grade 8. I always loved him. I wasn't always nice to him, but I met him years later. Years. This is maybe not even 10 years ago. I met him at Tim Hortons.
Oh.
And we got to talking. And there was 3 teachers, and I had all 3 teachers. And I said, there's just something about you that I have always respected you. I said, I wasn't a very good kid in school. I said, can I ask you why? I said, you never lost your cool, and it seemed like you understood me. Of all the teachers that I had, you understood me. And he said, you know what I did? I found out who your family was. And he said, I found out who your dad was. And I found out what you were going through at home. And he said, I learned a lot about you. And he said, I could understand why you were doing some of the things you were doing because of where you come from. And the man like we're talking, he just had tears in his eyes. And I said, I just want to say thank you. That just means a lot to me. And
Wow, you don't get people that's long past a job already.
oh, absolutely.
Teachers have huge influence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Way more than...
You can do that even when you meet a driver and you get to talking, you can pretty quickly figure out where he's coming from,
Mm-hmm.
why he's where he's at. When you can come from an encouraging, that's my gift, is encouragement.
Yeah.
But you very quickly get underneath and begin to encourage.
Mm-hmm.
And especially if the guy is very negative, you speak positive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, or if they're swearing and you don't swear, all of a sudden they realize you're not swearing
Mm-hmm.
and you're actually making sense.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? You can win a person over so quickly,
Yeah.
and then you can.
Well, you become an influence, a stability in there. That's the way I see it too, because it's interesting. Like you were saying about swearing. Like I can't remember the last time I said too many. Well, when I was hauling livestock, I used a lot of.
Well, that'll do it right there.
Livestock haulers don't swear.
No, those
That's just general vocabulary.
especially pigs.
Yes. So, what happened in the trailer stays in the trailer,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It gets scraped out later. Anyways, no, but otherwise, it's amazing how it doesn't take long for the vocabulary to change.
Yeah.
I don't know if the people notice it or it just happens. It's interesting when I go to the shop and pick up my paperwork and get ready, and there's lots of guys we're talking around in the shop, and one-on-one, I've noticed there's very little language that happens when I'm talking one-on-one. When there's a larger group,
Yeah.
they influence themselves into that, and it's harder to be that influence. It's just an interesting dynamic that one-on-one, they're not like what they are in a bigger group.
Yeah.
And that's part of an influence. I'd like to think it's a positive influence, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't come from a home that did much swearing. I think you heard Dad once. I think he hit his knuckle or something, or whatever it was. But we were driving down in the States. We went to Detroit, and I specifically remember this incident where I went into the shipper's place, and it was a place where they made springs for trucks and cars and stuff like this, and so they had huge furnaces heating up everything to cherry red and stuff like this, and they were making these springs. This is obviously a number of years ago, but I got in there, and I was very, very naive about swearing and stuff like this. Because there was so much smoke and burning metal and stuff like this, everything was sort of a blue haze. At least I thought it was blue because of the smoke. I went into the shipper's office, and these guys were swearing. Oh, man, you're just like, and your mother, blah, blah, and and this back and forth. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm in the middle of a free-for-all brawl here. And what's going to happen? I'm looking at this back and forth, and all of a sudden I realized every now and then one would smirk and then the other would smirk, and these guys were affectionate towards each other, but swearing in a blue streak. I was in total shock. I had never heard of that before, never seen that before. But then when you talk to them, like you said, one-on-one, it's a weird dynamic. I never quite forgot that situation.
Well, it's interesting. For me, vocabulary it's important to me. I listen to the words that you say. I build pictures of what you're saying so that I understand. And if every third adjective is the same one, like I can't really build.
You can't involve yourself in the conversation.
No, and I can't build a full picture of what you're saying. And I'm going,
just keep thinking about women.
Yeah.
Pictures. I see pictures.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's. I mean, you have different pockets of different cultures. That are.
There's a nice phrase that I heard years ago. It says, "If you can make someone smile, you could tell them almost anything."
Yeah.
And I try that. I met a young kid in Winnipeg last Sunday. I was filling up gals, and I wasn't in a terribly good mood. And I try never to go in public like that. And so I didn't feel like talking. And all of a sudden I turned myself sideways in the seat, had my door open, and I started talking to him. And it took but seconds. And we had this conversation going. And this kid, I was sharing my testimony with him, my life story, where I came from, and how I got to where I am now, and because he was talking about he was almost 16 and he was excited about almost being 16, and so another.
So
car
you opened your life up at a gas bar.
Yeah. And so
Well, that's pretty quick.
Cars
Some people wait a little while.
I've never done that before. I don't think I've ever done that before. Not like that. But it was just cool. And then another car would pull up. He'd go just hold on. He'd stick the nozzle in there, and then he'd come back over, and then we keep.
Oh, he
talking.
worked there.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so he was long done with me already, and people were waiting. And I said, you know what, hey, I got to let you go. I said, I'll see you later. He said, hey, next time you come, he said, I want to talk to you some more.
Oh, yeah.
And
nice.
Now
you're being an influencer. Now you're being
Correct.
a counsel.
Right.
Counselor.
You know what? I try to, wherever I go, try to open a door where they say, like, they'll be happy when I leave.
Yeah. In a good
They
way.
learned something.
Yeah.
They've learned something.
Yeah.
Or if all of a sudden they need to talk to somebody, they can come to me.
Yeah.
And we have those guys at work, like drivers. I'm finding it more and more.
Yeah.
You reach out to another driver, and I now have my favorite drivers that I kind of go to, and I just admire these guys.
Yeah.
I really do. Like some of them think very different than I do, but that's okay. We have that one thing in common, and I really respect them.
Yeah.
And, I'll call them up sometimes. I'll just say, "Hey, I was thinking about you.
Yeah.
Like, how you doing? Where you at?" And like, there's one guy. He's just a young kid that drives here. This guy just thinks, like, when I call him, I can't get that guy off the phone. Like, he has questions. Last time he phoned me and he said, hey, and he wanted to know all about my truck, all about my motor, like what kind of motor you have. And then he's telling what it was. Like,
He's a company driver?
No, they're all owner operators.
Oh, they are. Okay.
But I'm thinking, why are you calling me about that?
Yeah.
Also, that's where...
You're his counsel. Because you know what you're doing.
Correct. I've been around the block.
Yeah.
And sometimes age comes with that. Just because you get older doesn't say you get wiser.
No.
I know some old people that are really stupid.
Oh, yeah.
And I would never go to them.
Right.
But as you grow on purpose, and wisdom is basically common sense. That's what it is. And if you have common sense, it goes so far.
Yeah.
And even with other people.
That's an interesting comment. We're talking about wisdom and knowledge, and my son and son-in-law were at sitting around the table just the other day, and we were talking about that. How society has changed, that we don't utilize our seniors like we used to. It's well, what you need to know something, Google it.
Correct.
Yeah.
We talked about that for probably an hour and a half, and we left it there, and it sort of stirred in my head that whole evening. I was thinking about it. Yeah, that's just not right. Like there's something, and then
you know that Google is still a teenager.
Yeah. Well, that's the point. I texted them later, and I said to both of them, and it was just a short little text: Google equals knowledge. Wisdom is mentorship, or our seniors.
Yeah.
Maybe that's reflective of why our society is where it is. We've got lots of knowledge, but lots of
disrespect for age. Is a big factor.
The application of all the knowledge that Google has.
Yeah.
For me, Google is very valuable because you can get some knowledge from it.
Sure.
Like for me, I'm fixing up my motorbike right now, and I can get all kinds of parts numbers and this and that. That's all knowledge. But when I need wisdom, there's a few YouTube guys that they are there. They'll walk you through exactly what you need to do. Yeah. And you know what? Every time there's a question, I know a guy. It's not Google. I know a guy. Yeah. You YouTube it. He's put his wisdom on there, and that for me, the guy has no idea who I am.
Yeah.
And it was I think it was even posted about 5 or 6 years ago.
Sure.
That doesn't make it any less relevant. For me, there's a connection.
Mentors is like you can get mentored by somebody that you don't even know, like on Google or so. But mentorship is really the entire economy used to have mentoring integrated with it, like driving truck. You had to be mentored in order to get anywhere.
Yeah, you'd have to
40
drive
years
with
ago.
a trainer.
Yeah,
and
you have
all
to.
This,
Well, you do now, but it's more of a legislated thing than
Mm-hmm.
rather because there's so much to learn on the truck. But mentoring comes in many different. In the trucking industry, absolutely, you got to know how to keep your truck between the ditches, for sure. But mentoring is a huge value. Just brings immense. Like Alan was mentored by a guy by the name of Ernie Penner. Anybody in the construction industry, maybe 20 plus years ago, knows Ernie Penner. And what's amazing, and Ernie has, like Penco Construction is from Blumenort, Manitoba, a small little hick village. Well, how many are there? Maybe 1,000, 1,500, 1,200, something like that.
Something
Just
like that.
small little thing. And Penco Construction in there is out of Blumenort, Manitoba. But back in the day when Ernie was in charge of everything there, he's passed away now, but if you look at industry magazines like construction magazines, and they list the, like the top 10 or 20 construction companies in Canada, it looks like he was like third or fourth. And so you look at, the number one, Toronto, Vancouver, and then Blumenort, Manitoba, and a small little hick town. Who's this? Whatever. But this guy was unbelievably active in stuff. He built skyscrapers in Minneapolis, stadiums in, North Carolina or Georgia or wherever it is. Huge, giant projects. If you go every few hundred miles in northern Canada, sooner or later you're going to find a building that Ernie built. Our entire northern Canada is just riddled with stuff that he has done. He's unbelievable experience in the development and construction industry. And Alan had 30 years with the guy. He was actually groomed to take over the company in there. But in the end, what he did was he stepped down after 30 years and he went out and he did it all himself. Well, there's no way that anybody could be nearly as successful as Alan was if he didn't have that mentoring. He had 30 years of mentoring. Yeah. Land development has you only have a small percentage of success in land development. Everybody says, I'm going to be a land developer and going to make millions of dollars. Well, the handful of people who do extremely good is you counter that with the vast, vast majority who just barely survive or lose their shirt. And he was success after success after success. It's not that necessarily Alan is brilliant, though he's a very smart guy. He got his wisdom because he was mentored.
But he's also teachable. You can never get to the point where you know everything. I know that.
Yeah.
That's a bad attitude.
Ooh, terrible.
I hate
First
that when
flag.
somebody says, I know that. Like my grandchildren do that sometimes. I know that. I immediately take the time and say, okay, tell me what you know about that.
Yeah.
But they don't know.
Yeah.
No, seriously.
It's like it's a knee-jerk reaction. I know that.
Well,
really?
No. Like
You gotta follow
to
through.
be teachable and to ask questions.
Yeah.
Like I'm 61 years old. I still ask a lot of questions.
Sure.
Like I was at at the shop today, and I asked the shop guy. I said, so what can I do different? How can I prevent what just happened?
Yeah.
He said, Peter, there isn't a thing I can tell you what you could do different. He said, you went 2.5 million kilometers on that engine. He said, there's nothing I can tell you to do different. He said, it's old. It's old.
Yeah.
He said, just keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, always ask questions.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
that's how you learn.
Yeah.
That's for sure. And there's another category under educators, accountant, lawyer, banker, personal financial planner. I like listening to, like I've said many times, Dave Ramsey. And Dave Ramsey says if you have a personal financial planner, you always have to make sure that you understand what you're doing. You can't just blindly do what they're telling you to do. You have to understand what's going on. I think I learned it probably the most, our Uncle Ike. I was in a situation where I was a little bit of a pickle. He called me into his office and he says, look, you've hired yourself a lawyer. And he's going to tell you things to do and things not to do. But the bottom line is you have to always, always, always remember that you are in charge of your life. not the lawyer, not the accountant, not the banker, not the personal financial manager. You are in charge of your life, and you have to understand what he's saying, and sometimes you have to take it into consideration, and there are some times where you do not do what your lawyer tells you to do. I know I'm not giving anybody legal advice here, but realistically, in that particular situation, I had to do what my lawyer told me not to do in order to get out of that situation. And I had to see for myself, logically, that my lawyer had no other choice but to tell me certain things. And he told it to me in such a way that I realized, okay, I have to circumvent what he's telling me in order to get the solution that needed to be done. And it was risky, but it unbelievably paid off. It was very, very beneficial. But you have to understand the situation you're in, and you don't blindly do anything.
Do some homework.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter on what.
You have to understand what you're doing.
Don't just take the guy's word for it.
Yeah.
Do some homework.
Like, there is only primarily one thing that I really understand and I'm really, really good at, and that's non-taxable benefits. And you guys, you understand non-taxable benefits. And we have clients coming on all the time, and I explain it to them, and once I explained it to a lot of them, they go, I understand what you're doing. Yes. Okay. And they sign, yep. They know that we're liable for it, and they understand how they're saving taxes. But there are some people who come in and they're not listening to what I'm saying. They're listening to my confidence in how I'm projecting it. And in there, it's like you can see on their faces that this guy really looks confident, like he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, they can be the most dangerous.
Yeah, and then they'll sign on the line, and I'm thinking, I don't think this guy really knows what I just finished saying.
No.
Now, it's okay in my situation because I mean we have a guarantee on what we're doing and stuff like that. It's a no lose situation. But think of all the different areas that he could very well say, this guy looks really confident. I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
Holy cow, can they lose their shirt in a minute?
Yeah. Yep.
You have to understand it. I have a very close, not a very close, a close friend, a friend enough. And
Okay.
okay. I know the guy.
I know.
I once knew a guy.
I once knew the guy. I knew this guy's dog. Yeah. But this guy,
I knew this dog's master.
I knew this guy had bought an asset. And he got it at a good deal. He did some minor stuff on it and turned around and he flipped it. And he made a blinking fortune, okay? A really good amount of money. And I said, oh, fabulous. And he says, I was thinking I was going to, pay like crazy for taxes. And I said, so what happened? He said, I took it to a lawyer or to my accountant and paid virtually nothing. I said, oh, really? I said, so how did he save you taxes? He said, I don't know. I said, whoa, no. I mean, how did he do it? Was it? And I kind of guessed. The closest my guess was that he got it classified as a capital gains, and then you have a lifetime exemption of capital gains exemption that people have. And it used to be years ago. It used to be like 200,000, and then it was 250, and then it was $500,000. I think it's 600 or something like that. I don't know what the current number is on capital gains because truck drivers don't use capital gains. But anyway, and I said, so was it that? And he goes, I don't know. And I said, oh, come on, you're a smart guy. You have to know this. Now, I knew his accountant. His accountant's not around anymore. I knew his accountant like he's an honest guy. He lucked out by blindly trusting him. There are, for instance, tax preparers, to be on the same, like my industry or whatever, but there's guys who just flat out lie. And they are getting these guys huge refunds. I wrote an article just last month, and basically I said, look, there's this guy who's getting huge returns for these people, but the accounting firm, quote unquote, that is doing it, they print out the return on paper so that the firm's name is not on the documents, and it looks like the person is doing his own return.
Oh, wow.
And this guy's doing it but from cash. And he'll write off anything and everything Everything from, my wife got her hair done. Whoop, you'll just run that through there. Any receipt that you bring in, you'll write off. And he was getting like thousands, like one guy, $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 return, and knowing full well that it was just flat out lying. But the people who went to that guy, they blindly said, I'm going to get this money. Well, wait for a while now, and they're going to get audited, get the thing reversed. You got penalties and interest. It's an extremely expensive loan that they got. Very, just like, see, people have to understand why they're saving or what they're getting for it. You have to understand. If you don't want to put the effort to think, then probably get out of the industry, like independent operator. Just I don't know, work for McDonald's then. If you don't want to put in the time and effort to think through and get Wise Counsel in it, just leave, because you're not doing yourself any service.
That's part of the job of being an independent operator or business person. You've got to have your fingers in a
and
little bit
understand.
of everything.
Yeah.
When it doesn't mean you have to be proficient at everything.
No.
But you have to be able to know which way to push the ball to go downhill.
Push the ball to go downhill. But
what's on flat surface?
Every independent operator has to have Wise Counsel when it comes to mechanics. They have to understand. Yeah. They have to understand. You were mentioning a story. You trust your mechanic to a certain point, but then at some point in time you can change. That makes a huge difference. It's certainly not the cheapest in the world. Like you don't trust the cheapest person to do something. It's you got to get a full understanding of
even my mechanic. Like I've been with him for years, and he's done an incredible amount of stuff. But every time he tells me something that needs to be done, I make him tell me why. Why do you think? And then I still have my own option to pursue it or think above because I know, as dedicated as he is to my success, I have to know that he's more dedicated to his success. There is a little bit of I don't want to be naive in saying that he's totally dedicated to my success. No, his primary is making his bills get paid. And I don't want to be naive.
Even if he's mostly concerned for yours, he's not going to be 100% right all the time anyway. Especially mechanics.
It's different with truck mechanics as it is with car mechanics. You can trust the truck mechanics more than the car mechanics.
Especially lately in the last 10,
I should
20
say
years. Shops.
Because I'll give you an example. We were going to Florida, and I wanted to get my oil changed on my motor, transmission, differentials, transfer case. Okay, no problem. A while later, I wanted him to draw some oil out of my transmission. No, sorry, that was before that. To draw some oil out of my transmission to check it. And he said, well, we can't do that. I said, why not? He said, well, you have to take the oil pan off the transmission to get at the oil. You can't draw anything. Oh, okay. So then a while later, I went in to get my oil change on the motor. And then he comes back with like 3 or 4 vials. And he said, this is your transmission, this is your differential, this is your transfer case, and this is your motor. I said, where did you get those oils from? Well, this came from your transmission. I said, how did you get it out of there? I said, I asked you a few months ago to take some out of there. I said, you couldn't get it out of there.
Yeah.
I said, did you take the oil pan off? No. I said, how did you get that oil out of there? And he walked away.
Oh, no.
He walked away.
Yeah.
They have this thing that they show every customer that your oil in your transmission is dirty. You need to change it. So they change the filter, they change the oil, they change whatever needs to.
Oh, my.
Did he not get that from your engine?
No.
Oh, my goodness.
No. They have this behind the counter. And so the customers are waiting in the showroom for their oil change to get done. So then they come out and they show the customer this oil.
Yeah.
And it's not true. It didn't come from your vehicle. That's been there for who knows how many years.
Wow.
So as soon as they see that your transmission is dirty, this is what it's supposed to look like.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we better change that. We just made another $50, $100.
Yeah. One thing that's happened is since probably about 2003 2005 to 2010 and on is that the quality of workers that are in a dealership, like the mechanics that are in a dealership, the really good mechanics, they go out and they start their own shop because they can make more money on their own than working for a dealership. So the dealerships end up being nothing more than, glorified parts guys who just turn a wrench or whatever. So it's a big, dealerships are having a dickens of a time trying to keep qualified mechanics in there. And you can see that in their workmanship, it is terrible. I don't want to, I'm sure that they're trying their absolute best. But it's, I know there's a lot of anti-sentiment. Yeah, they're paying their, or they can be.
Yeah.
I don't know how long they can sustain such negative feelings in the industry. Like if people don't trust a dealership, they'll go to somebody else.
No.
But realistically, maybe the dealers get all of the warranty issues from large leasing, licenses from a carrier that has 100 or 200 or so trucks or whatever. Maybe that's where they make their money from, and not the independent operators. Most independent operators get their work done at private mechanic shops by far. I would say 70+%.
And I think a big part of the push on the big dealerships, they were pushing to lock down a lot of the computer access from anyone other than dealerships. And I think that's where I think the states just had, what was it? I think it was John Deere just opened up their computers or whatever.
Yeah, what's that called? Do your
right
own
to fix,
right
or
to repair.
right to repair.
Right to repair.
And I think the dealerships have been slowly trying to wean the smaller shops, because I know the shop that I go to, they don't have full access to a lot of the computers, the ECMs of the newer trucks. He just can't afford to maintain those computers and stuff. So he's not even bringing in, so he's actually maintaining a lot of the older stuff on the fleet, which a lot of us guys love it because we don't have to go to $150, $180 an hour shops.
Yeah. In Canada, it's different than the United States. They have the right to work or right to repair in the United States. As of today, anyway, from what I understand, Canada our legal system hasn't fully decided that yet. Like it hasn't gone through that process. I cannot see where the right to not repair or the not repair is going to be able to sustain itself long term in Canada. If it doesn't go the same route as the United States, Canada is going to be in a very significant, a very serious disadvantage compared to the United States, because the industry, it all comes down to intellectual property and who get it. The whole aspect of deleting versus not deleting or accessing or not. There's all sorts of all these issues are all intertwined with everything, and there's a lot of related issues to it. But I can't see Canada surviving long term with regulations that are contrary to the United States. Because everybody, sooner or later, then we just cross over the border and get done whatever. And
I know of a few guys that have their favorite shops down south, and even with the difference in the dollar, you have to pay more because of the dollar, but their shop hours are less, and they're willing to do more in the States than in Canada. In Canada, their hands are more tied. And it's a really interesting scenario.
The future of maintenance is. It used to be like you guys have older trucks, generally speaking. But the newer trucks, yes, they might, like we were talking about the other podcast, you might get better fuel economy, but what's the length of use of those engines? And
the new ones?
Yeah, the newer ones.
Well, I was talking to Ron. I spend actually quite a bit of time there now. He was saying the guys are lucky if they get 1 million kilometers out of an engine.
Oh, wow.
And now those are $65,000 to rebuild.
Yeah. But okay, but if we further define use of an engine, that doesn't necessarily mean that the engine, blows at that level. It also means, but the performance starts to go down, because you got so many. It's like a house of cards of electrical and sensors and all sorts of things are highly tuned, and it just all starts to get sloppy, and then your performance start going. So instead of your, X miles to gallon, you're going to start going down, and unless you totally rebuild the whole thing again. Maybe you get the performance at the end. Maybe you don't. There's unbelievably, I think the entire industry has gone down a bad path.
Yeah.
Starting right around the 2002, and actually the stuff in 1999. There's a lot of regulations that came out that forced the industry to do it. And I think they're probably doing the best they can, but engineering wise, you can only do so much.
Yeah.
Because the regulations required things that engineers just didn't have solutions for.
Well, just for example, with exhaust, like a lot of these, they run the exhaust through the engine again, and in order to do that, they have to heat that engine up way hotter in order to make that thing efficient. So now with heat, you're breaking it down.
Yeah.
So it can only go so long with the heat that it's producing.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
And that's what Ron was saying too. Like when I was asking him about what happened on the head, he said, "Well, that's can be power and heat, or heat."
Yeah.
And he said, anytime you generate a lot of heat, and what were they saying back in what year was it when they came out with the just before the DEF fluid, the regen system?
Oh.
What year was that?
7?
No.
7, 8?
9. 2009.
Yeah,
2009 and 10.
Yeah.
Okay.
They were saying that the heat in front of the alternator was about 75 degrees hotter than the 07s.
Oh.
And they had to run them they had to create that much heat in that engine in order to make it efficient and environmentally.
So that just increased the failure of alternators.
Well, failure of alternators and also the breakdown of the engine.
Oh yeah.
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 So.
Yeah. We always seem to go back to mechanics, which is good because we're independent operators. That's what we're doing.
Yeah.
But counselors, let's quickly go over the last few areas here. When it comes to media, whether it's mainstream media or social media, where do you get your advice? Where do you get your counsel from? Under social media, you have podcasts, which this obviously is. Also, you have influencers. I put them in a different category than podcasts because influencers are just saying, okay, buy this, don't buy that, should do this, should do that. And a lot of it is very, very knee-jerk reaction in that. And I actually want to stay away from the whole concept of being an influencer because I don't think there's a quick answer to any of our life's problems. You just have to highly invest and reinvest in yourself to educate yourself so that you don't become roadkill, figuratively or literally.
That's a good word.
It's like, because there's so many things that can bowl you over and take. I have another good friend. No, he's not a good friend. He's
that dog's master.
I know. Actually, a friend's father grew up in the oil patch and made unbelievable amount of money. And not the how do we say this? He's a nice guy, not a very sophisticated guy at all, and made a lot of money, house paid for, lots of savings or whatever. And he got swindled for about 3/4 of his net worth, and just because he was gullible, it took 30 years to save something, and it took basically about 8 to 10 months, and boom, it was all gone. And had he thought through what he was doing, he trusted somebody that I think the person had good intentions. I'm fairly certain he has pretty good intentions, but it was just unbelievably risky, and he didn't fully calculate the risk. And I know the guy who convinced him also lost a lot of his own money. But realistically, I want to make sure in order to not be swindled, an individual has to start investing now so that in 10 years from now, you're not swindled. Because wisdom, if you focus on wisdom, it takes a long time to develop the I guess you'd call it the discernment or the sensitivity to see through the BS that's out there. So you go, oh, you know what? I think I'm just going to walk away. I'm going to.
You got to walk away from the situation. This is the thing that car dealers especially don't like.
Oh yeah.
I was at a motorcycle shop. This is a few years ago, and man, there was a bike that caught my attention. I mean, big time, and the price was right. A beautiful bike, and my wife even liked it. and I thought,
well, then you're sunk.
This is dangerous. This is dangerous. And so we're looking at it. We're talking and different things. And I said, you know what? We haven't had lunch yet. We'll go for lunch, and we'll, if we still are interested, we'll come back.
Yeah.
We never went back. And that's the thing that the dealers or the people want is they don't want you walking away. But that's what creates wisdom is when you walk away, look at it from the outside, looking in, you'll take it, you get fresh eyes.
Yeah.
And I would say 80% of the time or more, you're going to walk away.
Yeah. I think the numbers actually, I think 90%.
Correct.
There's a 90% if they leave the lot, the salesman knows that they're never returning.
Correct. Yeah. I do that even in a store. If I'm looking for a pair of jeans, let's say, or I'm just in a store, and we got some time to spend, and you really like something, go to another store, and you know what? I've never gone back.
No.
It can be like that with anything.
Yeah. But all those they're little tricks.
Yeah. But there's so many voices. We watched a movie just a couple of Sundays ago, and the lady said something to her husband that just absolutely went so deep. She said, "The truth is always silent. Lies are noisy."
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
And I thought,
I like that.
My word, that movie was worth watching just for that one phrase. Yeah. Like, truth is silent. And when there's a lot of noise, get away from the noise.
Yeah.
And listen from inside.
Yeah. That is so incredibly true. Yeah. Which reminds me, I watched that movie. I told you before. Shawshank Redemption. I don't know how many times I watched it. I love the time when he comes out of the big tube and he goes to half a mile of sewage. The expression that he gets, that's the best part of the whole movie. But you got to watch the whole thing in order to see that. But there's a great scene in there where the main character, can't remember his name, and he was in the library, and this young upstart kid said, you know what, I want to get my GED. I want to get my high school equivalency or whatever. And the guy says, go away. I don't deal with losers, And I'm thinking, what? What kind of response is that? And the guy says, no, I'm not a loser. And he pushes it. And then the guy turned around and he says, look, if you're going to get your high school, you can't do it halfway. You got to do it all way. You got to be all in. And then I realized why the guy was saying it. He wanted to draw out commitment from the guy. If you want to be an independent operator, you can't be half committed. You've got to go all in and say, listen, I don't care what you think about me. I want to know the right. I want to know the right way to do things. I want to know the truth, and don't sugarcoat it for me. And getting commitment. There's been probably 4 or 5 times I've been approached that I mentor somebody, and I say no every time. And all I'm doing is, well, I shouldn't say this now, but how do you know how committed that person is to being mentored? It's a lot of work to mentor somebody. Yeah. I can give them a 5-minute advice on something like that, or even a half hour or an hour advice on it. But to actually mentor somebody to help them become either wealthy or successful in different ventures or something like that, that's a lot of commitment.
I had a guy come up to me one day. He asked me outrightly too if I would be his mentor.
Yeah.
And I said no. And he said, "Why not?" I said, "Because you don't want to change."
That's yeah. And how do you know whether the person
I knew this
him?
guy, and I knew the guys that had poured knowledge into this guy.
Yeah.
But just never did anything with it. And I thought, I don't have time for that.
Yeah. Sure.
No.
Good mentors don't. Their time is valuable.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, cool. Well, there's a couple other categories. We did social media, which is podcast influencers. One thing I'd like to talk about when it comes to anything social media, be very cautious. How many podcasts or so do you subscribe to? Probably none.
I have none, no.
You have none?
I've got a couple that I just read. Typically, it's a clickbait thing, and I read the headline article, and then I wonder, okay, is that exactly what he's going to talk about?
Oh, yeah, that's
so
clickbait. I get suckered every now and then on that.
Yep.
I say, okay, yeah. I know a little bit of the topic that they're about to talk on, and I said, do you think it is? And then I look at the bottom and I say, it's CTV. I go, no.
Yeah.
Well, or global or something like that. And I go, you know what? I'll find something that is a little bit more reputable to do that. Yeah, honestly, Rebel News, same thing. Rebel News, I don't listen to Rebel News either because they're just extremists. Like, but Dave Ramsey has a great fear porn. That's all what they're doing. Just trying to get you click, and just and get you hooked on something. Yeah. It's pretty bad.
I really like John Maxwell.
Oh, he's a good one.
It's
a very heavy
level. A lot of hours into his teaching.
Good leader stuff.
Books.
Man, that guy's prolific. He's got books. Oh, man.
And you know what? That guy, I've learned so terribly much from him. Not on the finances, but how to deal with people, how to encourage. Because I went on a journey of, okay, what does an encourager look like? What do you do? Like, so I dug into that, and I wanted to learn on that because that's just who I was, and I have learned so much. I bought one book from him. It says how to deal with grumpy people, or how to deal with I forget what the book was, but I bought it. And you know what? When you learn how people operate, there's only 4 personalities.
Yeah.
And when you can learn those 4 personalities, you can work with anybody. You can encourage anybody. I had a guy in a shop where we loaded in Tennessee just a few weeks ago. We were there for maybe an hour, and that guy just completely turned around. And it was, we didn't say a whole lot.
Yeah.
But he just saw something, and then he started asking questions. And by the time we left, he said, "Hey, we'll see you again." I said, "Well, if we don't see you here, we'll see you on the other side."
Yeah.
And you know what? The guy just lit up.
Yeah.
But John Maxwell has done a lot for me.
Well, he's a good one. There's official counselors, some like religious leaders. I guess to some degree, John Maxwell would be a religious leader, but he does a lot of corporate stuff.
He doesn't come from there, depending on where you're. If you go to his conferences, maybe, but his books, he doesn't talk a lot about God.
Yeah, trained counselors some trained counselors are exceptionally good. I got a little bit of a history here. Don't want to get too into it, but my wife and I have had some difficulties in our 35 years of marriage, and most of it my problem, or my fault. That's it. And so we've gone to counselors. I'll tell you that probably to find one good counselor in 20, that's our experience in there. There were some times, and my wife comes from a little bit like your family too, a little bit more violent or more abusive or whatever, and so it's difficult. Like we come from a nonviolent home, and to understand a violent home is like you're on a different planet, and like what's going on, and I had a very slow learning curve for that. We were going through some difficulties, and so we said, I said, let's get a counselor. So we found somebody, and and we were probably maybe 12 to 15 minutes into it. My wife was sharing some stuff, and all of a sudden she started talking like this counselor. She talked for maybe 7 to 12 minutes, something like that, not very long. All of a sudden my wife said, okay, we got to go. And I didn't like her very much, but I mean, that doesn't mean much of anything. So we left, and my wife said, that woman does not like men.
Oh.
And I said, well, that's what I thought too, but I'm a man,
That
so
obvious.
it was that obvious. She says,
wow.
yeah, just because I don't like you right now, it doesn't help anything for our counselor not to like you too,
Yeah.
you know? So, I mean, there are some counselors
Yeah.
who are there, or there's actually a lot of counselors who counsel because they got so many problems themselves, might as well just help somebody else.
Yeah.
You know, because that's their only. Says, I got a whole bunch of experience in crap, and here I'll help you with crap, and just.
I went to see a counselor in the area here about 7 years ago, 8 years ago. I was up against a wall, and I needed some answers. So somebody recommended this person, so I went there. I went there 2 or 3 times, I think, I think it was 3 times. And that person never answered any of my questions. She was trained in a way that I would answer my own questions. Every question that I had, I answered myself. She was brilliant. And you know what?
That's
it took
rare.
It took like 3 visits, and it was just, I was just absolutely set free.
Yeah.
But the answer is in you
Yeah.
to get it out.
Yeah.
A wise person helps you draw out what you already know,
Yeah.
and you're not willing to face on your own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
The answer actually lies within you.
Yeah, those are wise. Like my wife, eventually we found a really good counselor and did exceptional and got over all of my crap, but or whatever. But there are some really, really good ones, but they're very rare.
Yeah.
But they're overshadowed by the crappy ones. I had a person who came to our place and did some work at our place. I like to help young married couples, you know, because they're working full time, but what they're making is not enough to make their ends meet, kind of a thing. So, so you know what, just come over for a few hours and I'll give you X amount of cash or whatever. So I have actually had quite a few guys like that. This one guy, nice guy. He's a young married couple, a kid or 2. He's going through some difficult times, difficult marriage, and his wife went for a counseling session to somebody. The counselor said, I know what your problem is. And she goes, what? He says, you are a, oh boy, what's the name of it? Polyamorous individual. You know what a polyamorous is? Yeah,
I kind of understand.
Yeah. So in other words,
I'm embarrassed. I know what
you'll
that
have
means.
sex with anybody, you know. And she goes, really? He says, yes. And she says, you have to embrace that, and you have to confront your husband that he should not stop you from having sex with your
my
old
word.
boyfriend. And she goes, oh, really? He says, and if he does, that's an abusive situation.
Whoa.
And so here this guy's telling me this story, and I said, well, number one, if you want to save your marriage, you have to stop. You have to get your wife to stop going to this counselor, because this woman is wackadoodle. Like, he's got totally off. Now, long story short, yes, she stopped going to see that counselor, and that wasn't the issue anymore. They didn't. Their marriage didn't survive, but there are people out there with shingles fully endorsed by contemporary counseling methods that have some of the most wackadoodle ideas, and basically it's just experimenting. Oh, this sounds like a cool idea. It could get me some headlines, and they start proposing these things. Well, if anybody wants to last marriage, you know, longer than decades or something like that, you can't listen to some of these guys. They are just, I can't say the word insane, but for sure self-deluded into thinking that they know something that they really have no idea what they're doing. And yet they have all of the credentials, all of the papers hanging on the wall, And so you have to develop your own sense of, oh, you know what, this one, like in the end I was saying that my wife got really, really good counsel, helped us incredibly. Now, in all honesty, I didn't like the advice that the counselor gave my wife and me. I didn't like it. But I had to grow up, and it was probably about 12 to 18 months later, I realized, you know what, that was actually really good advice. And I just was not listening. I wasn't hearing or anything like this. And you got to get past that, you know. And again, it was my fault.
Yeah.
Or so.
I've seen the last 3 years is people don't want to do anything themselves. They want someone to lead them, tell them what to do.
Give them a pill.
Yes. No,
Sorry.
seriously.
I agree.
That is true. They don't want to think for themselves. They just want somebody to lead so we can follow that person and do what that person's doing or saying. They don't want to think for themselves, and they get themselves into trouble everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, I love that song that Aaron Tippin did years ago. He said, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything.
Yeah.
And that is so true, especially today. You have to think for yourself.
You can't go by mainstream media or the deluge of social media or anything like this. You still have to have a brain. You have to walk through and say, wait a minute, does this make sense? And if it doesn't, the thing is, they propose it. It's too complicated. You can't understand it. If it's too complicated, just get the heck out of there. Because you really say, I don't need this complication then. If I don't understand it, then walk the blank away. You know?
For me, it comes back to that influencer part. Who do you want influencing your life? That is key. That's what we're talking about. And for me, you were talking about sales people. You know, I can be talked into and out of just about anything, right? But like you said, take that time, and you all of a sudden realize the person outside of you can't make you do anything. Okay. First of all, you have to convince yourself. If you listen to them and allow them to convince you, then you've been influenced. Now, you choose who you influence, who allows
who speaks into your life.
And that's where I've realized, even for myself, if it's a lot of work, I'll allow someone to make that decision for me, and then I can blame it on them. As opposed to taking it on myself, because at that point it becomes, I am the person in charge. And I can either deceive myself. The story I tell myself is the most important story, because I can say, oh, he knows better, it's his fault. Or as opposed to, all the decisions are my decisions. That gut feeling is huge, right?
Huge. If you want to practice that, make your own decision. Go to a timeshare meeting. We've done a number of them in Branson, Missouri, just for shits and giggles.
Oh my word!
We went there one day.
Less giggles, more shits.
We went there one day, and there was $300 on the table. Okay, and I said to my wife, whatever we do, the answer is no. And so I said, for $300, I can sit there for an hour. And so we went in. They tried everything that they could. And you know what? Hey, I never made them feel bad. I never talked down on them. And at the end, when the final answer was no, they brought in this drop-dead gorgeous blonde wearing a red dress. And short. And I thought, oh, the devil is stupid.
Was your wife with you? Your wife was there?
Yeah, she was there.
Oh, really? Good.
And she sat down, and she sweet talked. She was just the kindest girl ever. And you know what? I was just as kind back to her. And my wife is sitting there. She thought, okay, how far is this going to go?
Oh, boy.
And then I said, I'm sorry, honey. I said, the answer is no. I said, we're not in. I said, we came here to hear your presentation. We've heard it. We've been here longer than you said you would keep us. And I said, we're not gonna decide today. And all of a sudden, that beautiful blonde began to change, and she got
Mad?
mean.
Ooh, yeah.
I said, okay, okay, that's far enough.
Yeah.
And she got up and she stormed away. There was nothing beautiful about her anymore. But
Yeah.
you know what? You see people giving in at places like that, and
Yeah.
later on, the next day, they
Yeah.
have buyer's remorse,
Oh, man. Yep.
and they couldn't say no. I mean,
Yeah.
you want to talk about high pressure.
Oof.
Oh,
That's high
yeah.
pressure.
That is, yeah.
And
Yeah.
so walk away. I said, let us go outside. We'll talk about it. We'll think. They won't let,
They
they won't let you outside.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's a dirty industry.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yes, sir.
So who are our counselors? Who do we trust in building future, whether it's in business or whatever, and success in our life? Who are our counselors? Who are we listening to? Who do we read along that lines? We're going to be very different here, particularly myself, because I've gone, I got an MBA, so everything from high school to bachelor's to master's. I've had professors, all sorts of influencers at that level. I've also read a lot of textbooks, which are not nearly as exciting as it sounds.
Can only imagine.
It can only imagine, yeah. But after I graduated, I read a lot of biographies, just a lot. Some autobiographies, some others, and stuff like this. It changed an awful lot of my mindset, and exposed some of the potential problems that I had. Didn't solve all my problems, of course, but it certainly did give me a great deal of benefit from there. If I would give a list of the individuals, I made a list of a few individuals who have significantly affected my life. I would say probably Dave Ramsey is probably one of the first. By saying Dave Ramsey, it's probably Ramsey Solutions, because they they have a list of 100 books, and I've read a lot of them that are in there. They're like some of the major ones in there, so I lumped that all into the same category as Dave Ramsey, and some of his other, what do they call that, other leaders that they have or whatever. They've written their own books and stuff like that. So it's Dave Ramsey. I'm also a big fan of Edward Deming. Deming is he's trained as a statistician, and he was the guy who went to Japan after World War II and converted Japan from a low-quality producer to a high-quality producing country. He was never really fully recognized in North America, and therefore he had a big chip on his shoulder. So he was in his 90s, and it wasn't until probably his 90s that he was a little bit more heavily received in America, but he was idolized, something fierce and incredible in Japan. The Deming Award is probably, it is by far the highest award you can get in Japan. Phenomenal. I have a book of Deming. It's Out of the Crisis. It really changed my life. It's probably of any other book. It took me 2 years to read his book. It's a statistician book, so it is, you pretty much have to laminate all the paper and read it in the shower. It's so dry, but it takes a lot of concentration going through it. Actually, the book itself, Out of the Crisis, actually has trucking right in there, and it has a story of, I think it was Don Reimer Express. Well, not I think it is Don Reimer Express. Remember years ago, Reimer Express had on time or free. That was their policy or whatever. And long before there was much, what do they call that, satellite tracking and stuff like this, how can a company have something on time or free? How do you manage something like that? And one of the greatest parts in the book, and there's a whole section in the book, Out of the Crisis, that deals exactly with this issue. How can you guarantee that, for instance, weather isn't going to stop it? How are you, or breakdowns isn't going to get it late? Because it would cost unbelievable millions of dollars if it's not well managed. And one of the things that it was a beautiful takeaway from that book is the realization, and the only way to do this is through an example. Let's say, for instance, you got a shipment going from Toronto to, say, Grand Prairie, Alberta. And so you have depots, say, in Winnipeg and in Edmonton, and then in Grand Prairie is where you actually deliver. And so it has to change trailers in Winnipeg. It has to change trailers in Edmonton. And going through the process, Dr. Deming says, who's the most important individual or the situation that causes the most amount of risk onto the freight moving from Toronto to Grand Prairie? And in the end, it is the forklift driver in Winnipeg and Edmonton. Because what the forklift driver does is he takes it off of the trailer in Winnipeg and he puts it on the trailer on its way to Edmonton. And the more time you touch freight, the higher the chance of damage and also misplacing it and stuff like this. So it has to be picked up and dropped off perfectly. And you have to know, the person in Toronto has to know what the schedule is in Edmonton or in Winnipeg, and the person in Winnipeg has to understand what the schedule is in Edmonton, so that you can put the first drop that the trailer has to deal at the end, and then the last drop at the front of the trailer.
Yeah.
All the way through.
Product placement.
Product placement all along the trailer, and he beautifully explained it, how the intricacy is in Winnipeg and Edmonton in order to get it to Grand Prairie, because you want to touch the freight as few times as possible all the way through there. Just the thought process of quality and the like. And he says one of the biggest problems in the trucking industry is hiring these kids on a forklift that have virtually very little training, and all they say, oh, you're just taking stuff off of the trailer and you're putting it on the trailer. And if you want to have your reputation and so you don't want to lose millions of dollars, your most highly trained, competent individuals have to be on that forklift. It's less of an issue in the drivers than it is in there. And that was a huge thing. See, it made a huge difference in my life. That one book is a huge thing. Anyway, that just an example of it. There's other areas that has to do with organizational efficiency. Other counselors that I have is Thomas Sowell, which is he's an economist. Jordan Peterson, very controversial guy, but a big, deep thinker. I like a lot of what he says and how he says it. And Victor Davis Hanson, he's a historian. He writes many, many books in everything from World War II, Peloponnesian Wars, all sorts of things. Big historian there. Makes a big impact on my life. Very, I guess, strategic. I like learning in that regards. What are some of the not influencers? I like to Wise Counsel. Where do you glean a lot?
Not one particular.
You
person.
said John Maxwell.
John Maxwell would be the top one. Leadership skills, developing leadership skills, and I lead a lot to again going back to my personality. People that are more like me, operate more like me. Yeah, I don't lean to one particular one. There's many. Yeah, there's many. I draw a little bit from here and a little bit from there. But if I also find somebody that I really like, then I'll spend a little bit more time, or we'll pick up a book and go through the book.
Yeah, your wife reads on the while you're driving on the road.
Well, she'll read 8 hours.
Ooh, wow.
Oh yeah, she just read. I don't mind driving.
After 3 or 4 hours, if I would read, because I read to my wife sometimes. If I read, my throat gets too sore, and I'm going.
Well, she just takes a sip of water and
keeps on going.
Yes, yeah, she's read all the way from Minneapolis home.
Oh wow!
Right to Winnipeg.
Yeah,
but yeah,
that's good. Do you listen to Audible? Or any
Very
books
little.
on CD or anything like
little.
that?
Very little.
I should introduce you to some of our library of audios, some of them, because it really will be a good idea if we could go over some really good books and everybody go it all together, because I have a lot on CD, a library on CD, and then we listen to it, and then we could discuss it for a long time, some of the
You've mentioned that. I've got to get techie to push the right buttons
Yeah,
yet.
yeah.
I'll get there
we'll
yet.
send it.
Yeah.
We'll send you a link, and then you can just
Yeah.
go straight in there. Maybe that.
Yeah.
One that I'm a huge fan of is The Speed of Trust.
Oh, I've heard of that one.
Yeah, that is a phenomenal. Another one, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Great one. That's a. There's when it comes to books, there are some classics, and there's a lot of spin-offs. I try and stay away from the spin-offs and just keep classics. You know, and say these are. John Maxwell has some beauties in there. Is it principle leadership, principle-centered leadership? I don't know, something like that. Great principles of leadership. I got it on my desk over there somewhere. But anyway, what do you listen to?
There's a variety of stuff that I listen to on YouTube. Jordan Peterson and a few others. But as far you were asking about influencers, and I can't say that I've had specific mentors. I was thinking back on how and who were influencers in my life, and I realized I didn't have specifically one a person that I would go specifically talk to, but there were people I seen in my social structure, let's call it, that were successful in areas that I was not. And growing up, I was quiet. I wasn't outgoing. You were the outgoing one. I was quiet and whatever. And you're talking about Alan Hebert in that structure, let's call it. Alan was also I positioned him in myself as a mentor, because I seen there were areas that he was succeeding in that I lacked. And that also brings up the area where I said, I have to be in charge of my decisions, because I know where I can talk myself in and out of things. And most of the time I talk myself into the easiest route. Yeah. And then you deal with things down the road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you're really honest with yourself, you know the answers inside. But it's that mentor that says, you know what? No, you've got to make these hard decisions. You can do this. They'll walk you through it.
Yep.
Even making business decisions. I was driving, hauling vans for several of the big companies. And you found out there was an opening hauling livestock. And you said, you know what? They pay good. I had to decide, okay, do I want to do that? Because at that point, I was making money. Do I want to make that next step? So I took your advice. I said, you know what? I think I can make this happen. In doing that, I seen this company was successful. I said, you know what? I've reached as successful as I'm going to in van freight, pin to pin. That's all, right? But if you make this next step, you can be more successful. I realized in hauling livestock, they were very determined on being successful for themselves. And I knew if I put myself in with them, I'm not the person that would drive, and I'm not the one getting the freight there. If I'm a key spoke in their wheel, they'll bring me along in their journey. And
they'll make you successful.
They'll make me successful.
Just through osmosis, I guess.
Yeah. Well, you put yourself in a position where you see success happening. And it takes you way out of your comfort zone. Because I know there was times where I was coming home so dog tired, and I'm going, why am I doing this? What? Yeah. End of the month, the paycheck. That's why. Yeah, let's go to it. It's not fun when you're there, but it gets you where it's a conscious decision.
Yeah. Is there anybody that in the trucking industry you listen to? Podcasts, XM radio, or anything?
Oh, there were. I listened to
the Trucking Bozo.
The Trucking Bozo.
Yeah.
Is that United States or Canada?
That was United States.
That's US. Right. Yeah. But there's also that
Yeah.
what's
Kevin
his
Rutherford?
name? Kevin Rutherford.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was a stretch where I had XM and I listened to him a lot, and there was an incredible amount of wisdom and
Yeah, he was very good.
Yeah.
There was another guy.
He's still got a podcast. He's not on XM anymore. But he still has his own podcast.
Okay, no, I know he's not on XM.
Yeah, okay.
But there's another guy, that old guy, blonde hair, with his wife. What's his name? He had a show in the afternoon on Willie Nelson's station. Can't remember now. But anyway, him and his wife were always together.
Oh, okay.
And
it's not ringing a bell.
that was all about trucking, everything about trucking. But this Rutherford, he had some really good.
Yeah.
Like, he was an owner-operator man.
Yeah,
He
yes,
was an
yeah.
owner-operator himself.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
but he got into radio and
Good for him.
the interesting part, well, the relevant part was that he actually had the physical numbers that he
Yeah.
ran himself.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Which basically bought him his reputation. He could show you what the numbers were.
I talk to drivers more, and I look for the senior drivers.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I met a guy in Minneapolis about a little over a month ago. He was 70. He was gonna be 79 that month, and we talked for quite a while. Just some of the stories. I like the stories.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you learn from the stories. Like, this happened to me, and this and this happened and
Yeah.
stuff. And you can ask questions, and when you show interest, they'll pick it up right away if you
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
whatever.
You have to be authentic in learning.
Yeah.
And you have to be humble. Humble is probably the
See,
key.
for
of
me,
it.
radio, telephone, I don't do that very much at all.
Mm-hmm.
I hate talking on the telephone.
Yeah.
I just don't like it.
Yeah.
But when I can stop somewhere and meet somebody, I'll
yeah.
always go talk
Yeah.
to somebody.
Yeah.
And you meet a guy just a couple of trucks down. He's doing something on his truck, and you
Yeah.
go over and you start talking.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah,
so
that
educational for
personal interaction for me. Talking on the phone is difficult because it's just black and white. Like
me. Even texting.
Yeah.
You don't feel
Yeah.
what.
No.
And even for making appointments for my truck, it's hard. I know that's the only way to do it, to make a time slot. But when I go in there, they've got a rough idea what I want. But when I go in there, I talk eyeball to eyeball to the guys, and I say, this is what's going on. As opposed to over the phone. This way, I can see whether they're just writing something down and don't care.
Yeah.
And
That happens.
Yeah, happens a lot.
and then at the end, the personal satisfaction for me and for them, I think that you know what, we got that nailed. We got it done, and
It
it
solved a problem.
solved a problem. Yeah.
But for me, we run together.
Mm-hmm.
When I ran by myself, before Kathy came with me, I listened to radio all the time. And there was podcasts. I'd listen to stuff all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But when she started coming, then one person's sleeping, one's driving, and I hate headphones in my head.
Oh, really?
On my head. And so we just learned to just be quiet.
Yeah. When it comes to counselors seeking wise counsel, yes, we do want to seek wise counsel in the trucking industry, and we can get an awful lot. If we're independent operators, I want to encourage everybody to, first, they got to learn their truck, the specifics of their truck. And if a person only owned a truck for 2-3 years, they only started learning about it. Because you can get 2 trucks off the assembly line, 1 serial number apart, and they act and react very, very differently. And so you have to be very close to your truck. And there's a lot of guys also that want to go into multiple trucks, and they want to get their own running rights, which is actually in the last couple of years, running rights is has been extremely lucrative. Maybe not right now, but probably the ones where there's most amount of lucrative, lot of money in is basically January to May of 2022. There was huge margins to be made, and guys with their and were motivated to get their own running rights, and then they go out and they start getting freight and working with brokers and stuff like this, and it is so incredibly easy to, number one, get your running rights, and number two, to start working with any kind of broker. But in the end, it comes down to a deep commitment and a relationship between yourself, if you have your own running rights, and the broker. You are tied to that broker sometimes just as much as you are to any trucking company. And you're developing maybe contacts of, customers themselves. So you may have, 30, 40, 60% of your trips you're dealing directly with the customer. You always have some sort of relationship with brokers, and being able to, I like the word discern, but it has a whole bunch of other kind of a unusual context, but you really have to be able to see through the what is being said, and you have to develop this, and you have to exercise a discernment to figure out whether you're being told the truth, whether it's not, and stuff like this. And that muscle, some people are very easily, they develop it very easily, and others don't have that very easily, and it has to really be exercised. When I first got into trucking, in 1996 to 2000, 2002, I was extremely naive about people being successful. I thought anybody, or should I say everybody, wants to be successful. And I think on the surface, everybody wants to be successful, but so few actually want to do what it takes to be successful. And I didn't really fully believe that. I thought everybody would just do whatever it took to be successful. I was very naive, and it got me into a lot of trouble, and the like. And I had to learn to hold myself back. In all reality, I still am somewhat gullible when it comes to, I guess to say, trusting somebody whether they're going to do what it takes to go through with it. But I've had to wrestle with it, and I've consciously decided that I want to believe in people, even if it doesn't make that much sense. And so, and even if it defies kind of logic. That doesn't mean I'm all that vulnerable, because in our firm, for instance, when it comes to hiring people, I'm there for the interview, going through it with the interview, but I do not make the final decision on whether to hire someone. Like the office managers who have the final decision, we make it jointly mostly, but I figure 60% is theirs and 40% is mine, and I only put them in the position where they are office managers when I see that they can see through the BS better than I can, and then I'll just back off on it. I do still get into a position where I'm vulnerable, but I'm okay. I never expose the business too much to one or two either clients or any individuals where it could take the whole thing down. I would much rather just say, I'm going to write that off. I'm going to write this experience off, and I'll just keep right on going. Between 1996 and 2000, I did a fair bit. Like I also did leasing out of trucks. I don't know if you remember that. No, you didn't? You remember that. Actually, I leased out one to you many years ago. Yep. And 70% of those that I leased out trucks to were successful. Actually, I still have a fair bit of clients that I, 20 years ago, I had leased out trucks to. But 30% took me down. Like it was a disaster. And I basically believed what people said. Now, what's changed since then is instead of having a few people provide a great deal of finances to me, I now have a whole bunch of people giving me just a little bit, just every little bit. So being wrong once or twice or 5 times or something like that, but just write that off and then and so be it. But I like the idea, and I think me and you, Peter, are similar in nature. We want to encourage people we want to help people, and sometimes we help people and lift them up only for them to bump, or whatever. And I don't want to get bitter on that.
No.
I don't want to turn and say, you know what, dang it all, I just want to get rich for the sake of rich and, just not deal with. There are some people, honestly, who did exceptionally well, just were never given an opportunity before. And so there is truth in it, but it does make a person very, vulnerable in that regards. When it comes to, I guess you'd be wise counsel, I have a very small little caveat in my life that I want to be vulnerable in my life somewhere so that I want to believe in people. I don't want to not believe in people. If all you were exposed to is just you only want to deal with people who are going to be successful, in the end, get into a little bit of an ivory tower. It says, well, that person doesn't, that person is not successful, probably never will be successful, I'm not going to give him his time. But sometimes you have to go out and risk on I shouldn't say a total stranger, but risk on with somebody so that you say, you know what, yes, I'm going to fail. I have to give it out even though I don't get any return or anything back from it or whatever. When I think about seek wise counsel and I want to give wise counsel to, I don't want to be isolationist where I'm saying I will only give this out so and so. Now, they have to have passion. Whether they're going to be successful or not is, obviously up to them. But I sure hope that that people will be successful. My dream would be to have every single one of my clients make more money than I do. That would be the best. It'd make my life wonderful and their life wonderful. And I think that's a great situation to have. When it comes to counselors, it'd be good to have feedback from people who are listening to the podcast and give us some ideas and say, what do you do in this situation? What do you do in that situation? Stuff like this. So
how do they do it on YouTube? Leave a comment in or
leave a comment
below or something like that, right?
Or probably the best one I like is just email me. r.scaper at makingyourmilescount.com, and I'd love to talk about different topics and see if we can get more movement in that regards. I have an immense respect for independent operators. They are very wise in many regards. In order to be successful as an independent operator, it's not a dummies industry.
The respect I have for them is, it's been built up over the years, but it's a big part of it is most people don't realize the level of commitment that it takes to be an owner operator.
It's exhausting some days.
It's not just a 9 to 5.
No.
You have just a few hours at home to have a social life, and then your business clock runs until you come home and you book off time for social.
You're very right. You have to be committed. What's that famous one? You burn your bridges behind you, and you say
Pretty
you're going to be
much.
successful no matter what.
Yeah. Well, my dispatcher said, if you all of a sudden feel that this isn't for you, walk away. No harm done. I said, I didn't come into this with a quitting attitude.
Yeah,
No,
sure.
yeah.
I'm here to succeed.
You've been a couple of months now. Has it been a good experience as an owner operator?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah?
Absolutely.
Is it better than a lease operator?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah. There's a lot more money in it.
Yeah?
We've just had a lot of expenses this year. That's
That's
been a
you
killer,
just blew your
man.
engine.
Oh, shoot, man.
Yeah.
I think this is the third or fourth winter where I have come out of January, February, and March not a positive cash flow. January, February, and March, I've found that it's tough to come out with a positive cash flow, just with the breakdowns, the miles, the storms. It has been really difficult. There's a couple times where my wife says, well, why don't we just park the truck? I says, well, yes, that would make financial sense, but my customers, what do my customers do? I leave my customers high and dry. Like, they're not going to shut down for that. And that's part of being an owner operator. It's not just a 9 to 5. It's my customers. My customers come first.
Yeah. It's tough.
It takes, like, for you right now, rebuilding doing the investment on your engine that you're doing this in the next few weeks or month or however long, it'll probably take you a year and a half, 2 years to recoup.
We figured 6 months.
6 months.
Yeah. We've committed to 6 months.
That's good.
The way we've been going, yeah. If we don't have any more major
right.
stuff happening,
Yeah. Pretty much covered everything then.
Well, yeah, but would you be driving super single or team?
Well, no, super single.
Super single.
Yeah.
Well, then you're good.
Uh-huh. We've only had 2 paychecks
Oh yeah.
and know what we're getting for the next paycheck.
Yeah.
So just looking at those 3 months,
Mhm.
if that carries on,
Mhm.
Yeah.
we're totally good.
Oh, okay.
We're totally good.
So-
It sounds terrible, but
Yeah, no, it does. It
Yeah.
scares the crackers out of you.
Oh,
You know,
sure,
you say,
yeah.
"Oh my goodness!"
Yeah.
I almost bought a house for that price.
I know.
You know.
We paid $54,900
Oh,
for our first house.
I paid $95 for mine.
Yeah. $54,900
man.
and now just my engine is $53,000.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But you had the truck paid for,
Oh, yeah, it was
Yeah.
paid for in 1 year.
so it makes a big difference. You gotta.
I paid $42 when I bought it, and it was not quite 3 years old.
Oh wow.
Wow, you got a good deal.
42, and now
Yeah,
it's
your motors.
How long have you had that engine or truck?
since 08.
Oh,
I
8.
bought it in February of 08.
Oh, yeah, 15 years. Boy.
She's in good shape.
That, yeah.
Yeah.
For the shape she's
Looks
in.
good.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
beautiful show. I have your picture of your truck on the entrance of our
Is it still there?
Steinbeck office. Oh yeah. Yeah, because it's a beautiful truck.
Yeah, you know what? If you stay on top of it, you have to do some things yourself. And like you rent a shop, so I don't know if you do your own oil changes and stuff like that.
No, I have a little different business model. I don't have the chrome you do,
Right.
but when I bought the truck, it was exclusively for hauling livestock. When we were done driving for the week, I had no energy left to polish,
Yeah.
clean, whatever.
Yeah.
And I had maintenance schedule set up. You know what? When my truck comes home, it gets through there. You guys make that work. I'm making this work. I'm going to sleep and see my kids. And so that's how.
Bull haulers are tired people.
Yeah.
Yes.
More pressure.
Well, it's a little different. Well, with us, we don't have kids at home either. I mean, none of us do.
Mhm.
We see our grandkids, but they don't hang out there every day, all day long.
Right.
So I love to go on. The shop is my
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, it's
my
it's a man
quiet
cave, a
time.
beautiful
Yeah.
man
My
cave.
wife leaves me alone there. She does her thing inside. I do my thing in the shop. I unwind there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll sometimes I'll just lay on the creeper underneath the truck and just
Go to sleep?
have a nap. Yeah. It's comfortable under there.
Yeah, sure.
But whatever, like you just look around and give it a grease job, whatever. And
Well, the nice part is when you see a wire that's hanging down, you follow it up and you say, "Oh, why is that? That wasn't like that last week." You've solved a big dollar problem way ahead of chat.
Yep.
You know, that's where I have to pay a little more money for that because I don't have a shop.
I enjoy working on the truck. Like I'll do all the minor stuff myself, and now I want to get into doing wheel seals and. and
You're
stuff
going
like
to
that.
try it?
Yeah, I do my own brakes.
Can you legally do that?
Why not?
Is it not a safety issue for...
I do my own brakes.
Ooh, wee. Really?
So
You didn't hear that here.
No, you
is
know
that
what?
not,
That's
is that not allowed?
I don't know. Well, I know. Well, let's put it this way.
I'm an accountant. I don't know this stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know the mechanics of it.
I know I don't have enough skills to trust myself, but I know eventually I probably would get just as proficient. I don't think there's any DOT laws against it. There's
That
probably
is that is
lots
the
of,
easiest thing to do.
yeah. Well,
Like it scared me to death
well,
the
if
first
you-
time, but I took both wheels off to one side, and then I kept that one assembled.
Oh, yeah.
While I took this one apart.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And you know now we have the cameras, so you take pictures.
Oh, sure.
Like what I did, I just replaced my thermostat. I had no idea how to do it.
Oh, yeah.
And the shop made it sound like it was a 2.5 hour job. Well, that's what they charged you.
Yeah.
It took me 45 minutes. I had everything back together.
You can't
Well,
do that
there's-
with new trucks, though. Can you?
No.
Yeah, there's way too many sensors.
Oh my
and
goodness!
all
I looked
sorts.
at an engine today at the shop. I thought,
Yeah.
whoa.
Yeah.
There's just too much on there.
Everything has a sensor and a wire attached to it.
Everything.
Almost the hose clamps too.
Yeah. But even that, if it was my truck, I
Yeah.
would figure it out.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like now, to change I'd change my own turbo. That's no big deal. I'm getting deeper and deeper into
Sure.
it.
Yeah.
And my brother's a 3-time Red Seal mechanic.
Oh, well, that's,
So if I have any
that's not fair.
So if I have any questions, I phone Alberta.
Oh, yeah,
There you go.
He's not here, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, and he'll give me any kind of advice that I
Oh,
need.
perfect. Well, I won't be calling you.
No, that's fine, yeah.
Yeah. How
And
do I
you know what? Alberta is very close to Canada.
Right. Yeah. Stone's throw away.
Yeah.
I think that one of the most important things to do is to grow yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you grow yourself,
Yeah.
you can't give away what you don't have.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so if you build that knowledge into yourself, seek the wisdom from other people, don't be afraid to ask questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid. You're not going to look stupid. And
And even if you do look stupid, it's okay.
yeah.
But me and Alan had to make a huge decision about an opportunity. And he said, Robert, I want you to come. It had to do with taxes. So I said, well, okay, I'll come there. And I kind of guessed what they were doing. So we sat down there, and these guys went on and on and on and on and on. And one of the comments was, and it's really complicated, and I don't expect you to understand this, but, and then he kept on talking. And I said, well, stop right there. I said, I'm not leaving here till I understand, or we're going to walk away. If I don't understand, we're leaving it.
Yeah.
It's just whatever. Oh, okay. So we went over it at 4 or 5 times, different angles, back and forth.
Yeah.
And even Alan in the end understood it. And he's not an tax guy or whatever.
Yeah.
The two guys who were doing presenting, you know what? I understand this better than I did before. I said, oh, dang, these salesmen, they don't even understand what they're doing, And you got to understand it. And don't be afraid to look stupid.
The interesting part about that is a wise person will respect that visual of feeling stupid, whereas someone who's not wise will just make fun of you. The wise person will say, "Oh, I know where he's going. I've been there.
Yeah.
I've been the fool kind of thing."
Yeah.
A wise person who is giving wise counsel understands that maybe half the time the person isn't going to understand. But if the person keeps asking and asking, you say, okay, that guy has hope.
When I had my Harley, I went to a shop. It was at his house. I wanted him to do some work on the bike. I'd heard from other people where he had come from, and he was very knowledgeable with the Harley engines because he built race engines. And so I went to see him. And you know what? I was expecting the same kind of results as from everybody else. Like, what do you know about the bike? Like, I'm the mechanic. And so first thing he did, he said, what have you done to the bike? So I told him. And he said, okay, so let me ask you, what do you expect to get out of the bike once I'm done? And I said, this and this. Okay, I understand. He said, now, how much money are you willing to spend? So I told him, oh. He said, with that amount, he said, I can do a lot of work. And I said, okay. And so he said, now, can I give you some advice? Oh, well, absolutely. That's why I came here. And then he gave me his advice, and then we put the two together. It just worked out just absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, when I left there, man, that bike hauled.
Yeah.
It did exactly what I wanted it to do.
Yeah.
But he didn't make me feel stupid. He wanted to know where you were coming from.
Yeah.
And when you...
That's a good salesman.
Yes.
He's not a salesman.
Well,
He's a mechanic.
I know he's a mechanic.
I know.
But he truly sold his abilities.
But that's what I liked about that counselor I mentioned to you before.
Yeah.
You don't tell people what to do.
No.
Yeah.
You draw out of them what they've already done and what they're thinking, what they're expecting.
Yeah.
It's huge, man.
Yeah.
It's huge. But you can't, if you don't grow yourself, you can't help somebody else.
Yeah. A lot of times people will want to succeed in whatever endeavor they had, but they're only willing to go, like you said, you only have so much money to spend. Some person, I want to drive truck, but I only want to give 10 hours a day. Oh, okay. You will.
And I don't want to go to Quebec, and I don't want to go to New York, and I don't want to go to...
Oh, you sound like me.
Yeah.
Wow.
No, but you know what? The more restrictions you take off, because I know just a year ago, I was trying to make some better runs. The company I work for, we do very little freight into Ontario. Most of the guys say, nope, I don't go. I'll go to Kenora. That's as far east as my Canada goes. And I realized that we have a few companies that have freight that goes to Toronto, or they did a little bit to Montreal and Quebec. I made some killer money going east. And then the company I work for, they have connections out east in Toronto area. So instead of having the local Ontario guys do it, I went around, did 3 pickups, and made almost 10 grand in a week.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going, I'll run east but it doesn't happen all the time.
Yeah.
But if you cut your feet off and say, no, Kenora is it, well, you've just restricted yourself from that part of growth. You know what? Anything past Thunder Bay is hard work. You know what? Those guys, they earn their money going to Toronto. Yeah. There is no doubt about it. And 20 years ago, it was 20 times more dangerous. Yeah. It's hard work. The newer trucks have made it easier because the iShift, the automatic, and the roads have got better. Can't chop your feet off just by saying, no, I can't do that. The more you restrict yourself, the more you restrict your success.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I did that with my dispatch.
Yeah.
I told them I don't run east of Kenora or east of Falcon Lake.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It is hard work. It is.
No, not for that, but I just don't want to go there.
Right.
I went there for 35 years.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want.
Yeah.
I hate Toronto.
Yeah.
that's
Well,
just me.
Yeah.
That's just me.
Yeah.
The money may be good.
Yeah.
But there's other good money too.
Yeah.
And maybe I need to recount on that. See, the thing is, with the company I drove before, if you were down out east, North Carolina, South Carolina, whatever, the load went to Toronto.
Everything. Yeah. Everything goes to
So
Toronto.
now I gotta start finding out if I go, like, our corner is Georgia, Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama. That's our corner. And I really like it there.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's all of a
nice
sudden
warm.
freight,
It's nice and warm in winter.
That too. But if there's all of a sudden freight now, and I gotta talk to him.
Mm-hmm.
If there's freight going to Toronto from there that pays really well, I'll do it.
Mm-hmm.
But don't send me home from Toronto. Then I'll go back south.
Oh,
Yeah.
You don't want to do a triangle. You'll do a V.
Yeah, because a lot of the freight that comes from the south goes north. That's the one that pays.
Yeah.
Yes.
The freight going south doesn't pay
historically,
Right.
that's
as well.
Yeah.
that's what it is.
But
Alrighty. Well, right on. Another great time here, I think. I enjoyed this.
one of these podcasts we'll do just with stories.
Just with stories.
Hey,
Yeah.
That
You mean
sounds
trucking
good.
stories?
Yeah, trucking stories, stuff
Yeah.
that happened down the road.
I also got a list, and it's not here with me. Independent operator questions. Like, just, hey, I'm in this situation. What would you do? I should
that's a
probably
good
do that.
idea.
A lot of them are just like, okay, been there. And in that case, you should probably do this.
And other trucker stories. Though it's always good to hear because it usually triggers another memory that you otherwise would just have stuck in the shelf, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
It's good. It's good. Because there's a lot of young drivers, guys getting into the industry for the first time again. By young, I mean, they're not, there's some 20, 21, 25, but the majority of when they come into the industry, they're 35, 40, 45. That's considered young.
Well, I was 26.
You were 26. I was 20.
No, I wasn't 26. I was younger than that. 24. Maybe 24, yeah.
I can't remember how old I was. Oh, but you're 27.
I started in 85.
I am. I started in, I think it was 89 or 90, one of the two. Yeah, you don't want to get into the industry like I got into the industry. That's ridiculous. I bought a truck before I had my Class 1.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
That black Freightliner?
No. That was the second truck I had. I had Misty River Marine. I delivered boats for them.
Oh, that little Ford?
Yeah,
That was a
Ford.
cute little truck.
Oh, it was a beautiful little thing.
Oh, that was a cute
Single
truck.
axle.
Yeah.
No air ride.
No air ride.
No air ride. No, yeah. So going through
solid
Ontario
axle.
back then.
Or
Spring?
spring, yeah.
Springs.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Hauling light aluminum boats.
Like little sailboats, or little parachutes. I always say going through Ontario. Back then, Ontario was the worst roads. Back then, they're much better now. Like I said, we would drive and we'd hit a bump, and if some either myself or my wife were in the bunk or whatever, and it was what do you call those? It didn't go up. It went, what do you call it?
A flat
A
top.
flat
A flat top. That's goodness sakes. And it was flat top. And we would hit the top. We just boom, and you just went right up, wham, and it's like you're a sandwich, you know. You just whap, up and down, and they were that bad. Like it was pretty bad.
Yeah, I remember those days. And then we went to rubber block suspensions.
Oh,
Like there was no suspension. They have steel cylinders, and man, and always empty to Toronto from Chicago. And it's just bang, 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 bang. The spring trailers were spring ride.
I remember talking to old timers because we had radios back then, you know. And I remember one guy we talked to. He drove for Reimer Express from way back when, and Reimer was too cheap to put a radio in there, so he had these transistor radios with a wire hanging out the window and listening. And all the. What kept me up is usually just listening to, you know, whatever, talk radio or radio or something that keep me going. Back then, CBs were nice.
Yeah.
They're not anymore. Like, they're just full of crap. Like, and they just...
There's nobody answers the radio anymore.
Yeah, it's... I wonder if there's ever going to be a resurgence of CB. CBs are still popular in the States down there, aren't they? No?
More than here.
Well, then there was XM radio, and then you could listen to something for like 8 hours straight, no matter where you are.
Yeah.
And
I remember planning my route, and then, here I got to change to this station, and then here I got to change to this radio station before XM, right?
Yeah.
You can only listen to, you drive through Fargo, and then halfway to Minneapolis, you got to change over to something in between Minneapolis.
Oh, I remember listening to NASCAR radio. And then you arrive at the station. Dang, you're going through that station trying to find it's the most exciting part of the race. And then you lose it.
Yes.
But I got a lifetime subscription with...
Oh, did you?
With XM. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I bought that years ago. We were still running long haul, like 15 years ago, 16 years ago.
What did that cost you?
$500, $499. I had to pay for my subscription for the next year.
Yeah.
And so I called in. And the guy's going through it, and he said, "What do you do for a living?" So I'm a truck driver. He said, "Hey, I got a deal for you." I said, "What's that?" He said, "I can get you a lifetime subscription with XM."
Yeah.
I said, "Really?" I said, "How much?" He said, $499. I said, "I'll take it." Gave him my credit card number.
Yeah.
They have tried for years to get me on another prescription.
Oh, I can imagine. I can
They
imagine.
actually cut me off because I had parked my truck for a year,
Yeah.
and then when we got it back together, then we're driving and it was off. I couldn't get solid radio, so I called him and I said, "What's going on?"
Yeah.
So, well, I don't know what had happened, but anyway, they had cut it off because I wasn't listening. I don't know how they know that.
Wow.
But they knew that. And so they revised it again, and I get emails all week.
Oh, man. Yeah. So that's just for a base, that's not all their channels. Like
Yeah.
Oh, so that's like a premium, because I know XM, you got a base when I was...
Then they
added extra and extra.
Series bought the NASCAR, and I had XM for the NASCAR.
Oh,
I listened
that's
to every NASCAR
right.
race. So then Series bought it out, and I lost it. So then a little while later, then Series offered XM subscribers that we could buy the NASCAR. Well, there was four stations that Series had that you could subscribe to with your XM.
Okay.
It cost you a few dollars more.
Right.
And that's how I got that deal. Just when they, because I wanted NASCAR back.
Right.
And
yes.
so I bought the subscription.
But now with podcasts and phones that cost just like $100, $150 a month, communication and entertainment is almost endless for next to no money.
Yes.
Yep.
It is unbelievable. I remember $1,200, $1,500 a month phone bill from some of my clients years back when the cell phones just tried to get in there. That some of these guys failed because they couldn't keep off the phone.
Yeah.
Well,
you know?
you got charged by the second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember when
There was
our company asked us to put phones in our trucks. They paid us $15 a month or something. So if they needed to call, then they could call us, right?
yeah.
And now you're getting phone calls from people and you
Yeah.
can't answer it. The moment you answer
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
costs you X number of dollars just to answer it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was very uncomfortable.
Even though prices are reasonable, Canada is still the most expensive with the lowest level of service
Yes.
Well,
in the free world.
like we got a US plan now, and it's cheaper than what my original one was.
Yes.
Very,
Yeah.
very inexpensive now.
Yeah.
And we have unlimited amount of
Yeah.
Yes.
data usage.
Yeah. We went into that plan also, or that kind of plan. And now for my wife and I, we're on this same plan, unlimited data, North America, phoning, whatever. It's cheaper than what Canadian cell phone bill used to
Wow.
be before I even had the US package on it.
Yeah.
And at first I was skeptical. I kept my US phone because I didn't believe Canada they would give me data like I wanted down south.
Mm-hmm.
But then it all of a sudden
Yeah, now it's really
Really
changed.
it's been doing amazing.
Yeah.
I've been very
But it's
happy.
still 3 times the price that it is in the U.S.
Yeah.
Yes, I think
Because
for
I have
that
a
same
friend of mine down in
data.
Missouri, he's got unlimited data, calling, texting.
Yeah,
I think he pays $40 a month.
I know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, $65 a piece, I think, for my wife and I's phone
60 with the North American.
with the North America unlimited data.
With Rogers.
I believe it's Rogers, yes. Because
okay,
we
yeah.
get every month it's $127.
Yeah, that's what
for
ours
the
is now too.
two phones.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But before
Which is-
I was on a Canada only for a year.
yeah,
It was $170
yep,
for
Yeah.
Canada only.
Yep. yep.
Yeah, they just... Yeah.
I was very disappointed when they didn't let Verizon into Canada, but
Well, it's, monopolistic or oligopolies. That's what Canada is known for. So.
yeah.
Alrighty. Well, I guess we're going to call her quits. Have a great trip, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for stopping by Making Your Miles Count. For further Making Your Miles Count productions, call us at 877-987-9787 or download us at makingyourmilescount.com.